The Tech It Up Talk podcast aspires to educate, inform, and inspire educators from teachers to school leaders on tips, tools, and resources to support the integration of technology into classroom instruction.
You ready? Here we go.
You're listening to Tech It Up Talk with Dr. Mac, your host with the most passion for supporting educators from teachers to school leaders with the integration of technology into instruction. Today, we are diving into another critical conversation about managing change in education as we navigate the digital shift. With technology evolving faster than ever, effective change management is key to ensuring successful digital transformation in schools. And joining me today is Kristen Gibson, an educational leader and contributor to my book, Get Your Tech Together, Rethinking School Culture in a Digital Age. Kristen's chapter provides a roadmap for educators and school leaders looking to make the transition to digital learning seamless and sustainable. So let's welcome Kristen to the Tech It Up podcast. Welcome, Kristen.
Good evening. Good evening.
Oh, super excited to have you here. If you can, just share a little bit about your background and what inspired you to really focus on change management in education.
Right. So I'm a educator of about 12 years. Currently, I serve in a role as innovation and development specialist, and that's really like instructional technology. In my current role, we support campuses, whether that's teachers, school leaders, and all things digital integration, whether that's digital design or that's instructional technology, and just supporting them to help reach their educational goals as they are practicing blended learning and having digital tools for teaching and learning in the classrooms.
Wow, that is amazing, of course. And so your chapter focuses on navigating a digital shift, which really helps with transitioning schools with their school culture. And so can you break down for those who are watching us? We're live right now. And so just share for our audience what change management looks like in an educational setting.
So I think in an educational setting, change management happens when there's a vision that is brought forth, right? Something that is articulated like this is what we're aiming for. And so really just rallying the troops. Teachers are the boots on the ground working with children every day. And so with change management, really having a clear vision of what you're wanting to strive for, and then having ample enough time to try to reach that goal, and knowing that some people's pathway might look a little bit different. Some people might be proficient in that thing and they will get the vision and take off with it and make it their own. And then some people just need like a little extra support, whether that's something that's customized specifically for them, so they feel comfortable being able to reach that goal.
Right. Well, we're going to take a look in the book here. So in your chapter, I'm going to just read this one part that really stood out to me. You say that, leading a digital shift comes with challenges. And often the biggest hurdle is not the technology, but overcoming resistance to change. And so with that said, what are some of the biggest challenges you see with schools making that shift?
So I think with schools making the shift, a hurdle sometimes can be people's competence. And I say that in the aspect of like their digital competence, knowing that people in schools are from all walks of life and they're from different generations. So some tools that might have been accessible to them might not have been technology in the time that they were up and coming, right? And so technology is ever changing. It's changing very quickly in the digital or the school environment, right? And so it's not really the focus on the technology. It's really going down to the fundamentals of mindset. And research even shows that whenever you're adopting technology, people are going to be in different buckets. Sometimes there are rule followers and they're like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And so people getting on to a vision is totally not like that. People are bucketed into different groups. And so there are early adopters. They get the vision, they're going to work towards their goal, and they're going to take off. And then there are some people that are kind of going to trail in the back, and they're going to observe, and they're going to see their counterparts be successful. And then it's gonna click with them. It's going to make sense. Like, I can do this. This is attainable. Someone that's in my role is doing this same thing. Then there are other people that are, a little bit behind. They're going to want to, does this make sense into what I'm doing? Can I just already use what I already want to use? And they're really practical, and they're like the late adopters. They want to make sure, do I have the support to do this? Is it worth me investing my time? And so I think with transitioning into using different types of technology, it's really about understanding who you serve, who are the people on the campuses that are going to be implementing this, and really being patient and really just having clear outcomes and a good support system.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And so what you just described is the diffusion of innovation by, Everett Rogers. And so,
Sure.
he's one of my favorite go-to when we're talking
Yes,
about diffusing innovation. It could be any type of innovation, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be technology itself. But in this case, of course, we're talking about that. And I love that you share the different parts of that spectrum, that you have your earlier adopters are going to jump in, and you have your laggards that kind of pull them along the way. And so, a lot of times it's the communication channels, because I heard you say, like, sometimes when they see their peers implementing things. And so I would leverage that when I used to support campuses in that manner, to find someone to be like the champion for
correct,
supporting an initiative and leveraging that champion to really make change, because it doesn't have to be directly from me, and
correct.
I love that you shared that patience is very key. I see so often that we have specialists and leaders who get frustrated so quick because they want to see the things happening. And then, well, I did this training and I already showed them how to do this, but it's really, patience is key, because you have to understand you are a change agent, and it's going to take, some time for others to adopt and understand what you already have beliefs in. And so sometimes it
Correct.
doesn't happen overnight. And so I love that you shared that. Yes.
And I think
So
too,
yeah.
jump in, Dr. Mac. I even think too, like looking at the role of specialists or campus-based personnel that might be training the staff, like even having that mindset shift to what you were saying, being that change agent. And I might have the initial talking point, but building that capacity of that person that's going to be on the campus, that's the early adopter or the champion or the ambassador, and really leveraging them. Once you see that they're kind of taking it and running with it, maybe you present with me next time, or maybe you do it on your own and I empower you and give you the skills. So really just utilizing the stakeholders who are there.
I love that. You guys heard it. She said empower them. And sometimes empowerment doesn't sometimes, when you're a social change agent, it doesn't feel like you're making a difference, because it could be that the change is happening within the frustration. Maybe you did, give this group a step-by-step instruction. Maybe you thought you'd done the best job, but like, you have to be patient and willing to continue to support them, and just know that although changes that may not be moving at the rate that you would like it to, but change is happening. And so and there are shifts in that. And so with that, what are some strategies that you could recommend to some of our school leaders to help support with buy-in and really fostering that culture of leaders that really embrace a digital transformation?
I think if you're fostering a culture that is about to embark on digital integration and change with that, I think it really boils down to really having a strategic plan with like a guiding coalition. Like, you're having those stakeholders, whether that's the leadership team or your instructional coaches, people that are some component of the leaders on that campus, and really just ironing out a plan first and foremost. What are our outcomes? Is this something that we're chunking over time? And if so, what is the fundamental things that people need to know? And we're going to get really good at those couple of things, and then we'll tackle other things the following year. I think kind of once you have those outcomes, I think the leader articulating what is the vision. I think the other stakeholders can go out and talk amongst the teams, but I think the vision coming from that leader is most important. And I think the leader having that mindset that, this is going to be uncomfortable, and it's okay, because we have X, Y, and Z that's going to help us along the way. As I mentioned that, also thinking of what is going to be the support along the way, because it can't be a one and done type of thing, because people are going to learn and adopt on their own timeline. So what is the continuous support along the way? Is that a one size fit all type of thing? Is it where you have specialists in your district or someone that can support your campus and do something more customized, where people might feel safe asking questions and inquiring versus like in a large district wide setting, right? And so, really, just having those components and having a plan and backwards planning and what are going to be my outcomes. And these are our goals for this year. And then we'll do something a little bit different the next year. So,
You
multiple
kind of
things.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, and you kind of hit in some of what I'm about to ask you next, which is what are some key first steps? And so a lot of times we have this big grand idea that we want to implement. We want to implement and do a mass implementation. That may not always be the best route. So, what are some key first steps for a school or district that they should consider when they're thinking about planning to do like a major digital transition?
I think one of the first initial steps is like the networking component of it. Like, call upon your fellow districts, your fellow campuses, any people that are out there already being the champions and are utilizing it, and seeing, what does it look like already? You've successfully implemented this. What does this look like? If they have opportunities to have user groups where you can kind of go ask questions, get resources, I think that's really helpful whenever you're in a situation like that. I think next is also getting feedback from, your community, and whether that's your teachers or if this technology is going to impact parents and students, getting feedback from them. Like, what's the state of what we're in right now? What are some pitfalls and barriers that we're already facing, and then kind of identifying, well, with this new thing that we're replacing, how does this meet that? And just kind of get feedback from your community of where you're going to go. And again, going back to my initial statement of making that plan, that strategic plan. This is what's going to happen in a short amount of time, like a short-term plan, and this is maybe like our year-long plan, and making milestones of this is what we want to have accomplished, and then kind of filling in the blanks around then.
Yeah, I love that you said, involving your community. I think it's really important for you to consider all key stakeholders, no matter whether it is your district leaders who may be running the implementation or managing it, or your teachers who may be boots to the ground implementing some of the change, or your students who are really the ones who are receiving the implementation that's part of the plan. But I love that you said to consider your parents and maybe your community. I think although sometimes we know that they may not have all of the knowledge that we may have about how a classroom runs, but their voice is still important, because sometimes having a different perspectives or those different pieces, or even educating them into knowing where gaps that you need to close when the
Yeah.
implementation is really important. So I love that. One of the things I did when I was a director was to have like an advisory council. And so you have an advisory council, you want to have those different stakeholders who are part of the decision making. Although you may want to make this decision already, but it's still key to have that voice at the table, whether it is a pleasant voice or not. Like, I welcome all feedback. Feedback is a gift, because sometimes you have to just stop, pause, and put yourself in that person's shoes. And maybe they don't
Mhm.
understand the degree of how we may understand a digital implementation should take place. But that's helping us with really closing that narrative and closing that gap, because those are the ones that we're going to need to kind of move along. And so understanding and working through some of the pushback or the apprehension is actually a great experience. So that way you can
Mhm.
go ahead and address those issues and start thinking and potentially forecasting things that may come up, so that when you're implementing newer initiatives, you're already kind of thinking about, well, what are some things or some challenges that these stakeholders may have, or what are some key things that we need to consider for this stakeholder. I've seen it so many times that we have our school leaders, they'll go to a conference and they have a vendor tell them about the latest, greatest thing that's going to make a difference in their school. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a plan, then you plan to fail. So a
Correct.
lot of times we have all these initiatives that just come into place and they don't have a sustainable stay in the school district. And so you want to be very intentional with the implementation. So I love that. I love that. And so in your chapter, you kind of share some of your own experience in transitioning, and kind of share like what were some of the things that you used in your chapter to really set the stage about really creating something that's sustainable within the change management system within the district you serve.
So I think that having the opportunity to share my own life experiences was rewarding because this is something that I do in a day to day and something that I'm interested in and something that I currently experienced. And so being able to draw from those experiences and writing them into the chapter to have people consider, whether these big changes or little, I think the main takeaway from that is really understanding not the technology, but like the mindset shift of people in here. So I kind of spent some time in my chapter talking about, this is the reality, like technology has changed over time and people need time to learn new things. And from that, just kind of birthed just like tips for implementation. If this is something that you need to use in your district or in your classroom when change is happening or you're trying to implement new technology, what are some things to consider? Because it can be a very, if you spend that time on the front end making that very robust plan and thinking of who all it will impact, how you're going to communicate these changes, how you're going to continue to support changes, and change the plan along the way if you need to. I think those are really important considerations when dealing with a topic like this.
Oh, I love that. And speaking of, change, one thing that's really taking education by storm is AI. And so,
Correct. Yes.
as AI is continuing to emerge, and I mean, it's continuing to emerge in all types of ways for education and just us in our daily lives too. As it continues to evolve, how should educators and leaders really approach change management to kind of keep up with the innovation?
I think because education changes so rapidly and then you throw in the curveball of technology too, I think first, because that vision is coming from the school leader, I think the school leader having that clear outcome of what they're looking for and what this thing or technology is able to do for you, your campus, your teachers, whether it's efficiency or accessibility, things of that nature. And I think also like getting that understanding of how it works as well, or having that point person, again, whether that's someone on your campus or if that's district personnel that supports that resource, and just having like even a, a a brainstorming partner, essentially. So first, and once you have that, whenever you're working with your campus, also showing them that growth mindset and making them feel comfortable to make mistakes and be uncomfortable in this transition time because things are new and you need time to learn. But if they feel safe and like, if they hear affirmation, like, oh, I saw you really tried hard today and you did X, Y, and Z, or, I saw you, trying that out. Good job. And just giving them affirmations and rewarding any type of effort, I think will be really helpful versus letting your apprehension about the change kind of echo and touch others, because then it'll kind of radiate around the campus. So I think just starting with change management first, modeling that growth mindset and modeling that demeanor or disposition of, I'm going to go out and find resources. I'm not going to sit in my confusion and kind of be stuck within my learning and not get over that road bump. So really also just modeling, what are skills that I want teachers or people that are utilizing the technology, what do I want them to have? So if I'm showing them that I'm confused, but I'm going to go and find these answers, or I'm confused, or I'm going to ask for help, or I'm confused and I want people to come in and support our team, I think that having that type of mindset was really helpful for to see.
Oh, I love the one of the things I love that you said was don't let your apprehension echo. And so I was about to just share like one of the tips in the book that you shared was like to create a supportive culture of innovation. And I think that is a part of the supportive, like part of the supportive culture. A lot of times we all have apprehensions about, man, what if this doesn't work? This is going to happen, or the kids are going to do this. Like we're ready to depend on why it's not going to work and focus on solutions and how can we make it work, or how can we fail forward, because we know that
Yeah.
whenever you have something new, it's never going to always go perfectly the way you planned when you're planning out an implementation. There are going to be some pieces you may not have considered. You could have the best plan put together and front loaded with all the intention in the world, but you still may have opportunities and gaps that will happen. And so I love that part of the culture. And so can you kind of share, like, what are some other strategies to really support building a culture of innovation?
I think outside of, again, and I've said it before, but I think outside of like just articulating that vision, having that culture of innovation is again recognizing or highlighting those early adopters and shifting that capacity. Like, you did really well on that. Like, would you like to share your others or something that you're doing great and you've already picked it up and you're running with it? Like, would you like to share this with your team or maybe during our faculty meeting? And again, it's not coming from the head, right? It's coming from people that are actually using it. And, it's believable because there are going to be people that are at that opposite end of that continuum. We talked about like the diffusion theory. There are people that are at the opposite end of that continuum, and they're going to sit back and they're going to see, is this useful? Does this resource, is it easy to use? Is it going to make my work easier for me to accomplish? And so they're going to sit back and they're going to observe. And so, they have more buy-in when they're seeing their peers taking up the torch and they're modeling and they're showing how it's successful in their classroom. So I think that's really helpful.
Yeah. And so, um, if there was one key takeaway that you want listeners to remember about managing digital change in education, what would it be?
I think it'd probably be a phrase, but I think listening, adapting, and communicating. I think those are going to be like your heavy hitters to be successful in a domain like that. Just listening to concerns, listening to people that are already using it and what's kind of working from them. I think communicating support to people, communicating next steps to people, and not being afraid to pivot and shift if you get feedback and this is what worked, this is what didn't work. I'm not going to stay rigid in my plan. I can adapt to be able to better serve my audience.
Yeah. And so I want to allow the listeners to. I saw some comments coming through already, and just kind of share things and highlights from. And so you have people saying, if you don't have a plan, yep. Someone repeated that back. Then you plan to fail. Someone
Correct.
says, nice job. We're getting hand claps, great outlook. And so there's so many different people who are kind of sharing their feedback and agreement to it. And so hopefully those who are watching, that you're going to take this back and take it back if you know an educator or you work in education in some capacity, and share that mindset, share the podcast, so that we can continue to give these nuggets to help level up education for our students are worth it, right? And so we want to definitely create meaningful learning environments. And so, Chris, I want to thank you for joining me today. If you can just share with our listeners, how can people connect with you and be a part of your learning network?
Yeah, so definitely connect with me. I am on LinkedIn at my first name, Kristen Gibson MED, and I'm also on Twitter or X at Kristen. I'm trying to look at my notes, guys. I don't know my handles off the top of my head, but for Twitter, it's Kristen_Gibson1. You laughing, but I do not
All
remember
right, so you
them.
guys heard it, Kristen_Gibson1, or you just look up Kristen Gibson. And so we want to thank her for sharing her expertise on change management and being a part of the book, Get Your Tech Together, Rethinking School Culture in a Digital Age. Be sure to get your copy. Listeners, if you are ready to take your school's digital transformation to the next step, make sure you get that copy. Connect with us, be a part of our learning network, and we'll continue to share those gems and nuggets with you. Reach out to us. We love to really be a part. We're servant leaders for sure, and love to create opportunities for others to grow and develop the school educational system as a whole. And so I want to thank you guys for tuning in today and joining us, the conversation with Kristen and I on change management and navigating the digital shift. And so, as always, thank you for tuning in to the Tech It Up Talk podcast with Dr. Mac, where we explore how to level up your learning in technology. And so, until next time, keep innovating, keep inspiring, and keep teching it up.